Hello everybody, McFluffy Stuff here, and today we're going to bring to you our updated RenoLock deck list for Hearthstone. This is for the wild format. We have a original video on this of our first deck list that we made. We were balling on a budget when we ended up crafting this deck, so there are some cards in here that are less than desirable. If you'd like to go watch the video, you can. If you want to pause what we just scrolled through there, you're more than welcome to. What I plan to do is every time we make a new deck or we update the list, we're going to usually take this base list that we have here, number one, and continue to build off it. Now number two here is a little bit of our testing from this week. I'm finding out that it's been harder to cut cards than I thought, because what happens is you accidentally start to fall in love with cards that aren't necessarily the greatest, and you hang on to them, and it makes cutting the bad cards very hard. So without further ado, we're going to get into it. We're going to discuss the cuts, what we switched them for, why we switched them for, and maybe discuss some of the cards we're going to try to add in the near future. So we have one Mistress of Mixtures, one Mortal Coil, one Acidic Swamp Ooze, one Blood Bloom, one Dark Peddler, one Dark Bomb, one Defile, one Vulgar Homunculus, one Bronzebeard, one Deathlord, one Earthen Ring Farseer, one Imp Gang Boss, one Mind Control Tech, one Shadow Bolt, one Blast Crystal Potion, one Elite Star Seeker, one Hellfire, one Kazakus, one Piloted Shredder, one Shadow Flame, one Void Collar, one Antique Killbot, one Lotheb, one Rotten Apple Bomb, one Reno Jackson, one Siphon Soul, one Abyssal Enforcer, one Twisting Nether, one Blood Reaver Gul'dan, and one Mountain Giant. So as you can see here from this list, the changes are minimal. We're going to discuss over them, and I'm also going to discuss the cards we switched in for them. So first off, we cut Tar Creeper. Now, Tar Creeper is not a card that is necessarily horrible by any means, but as we found out here, it's more of just a cute card than anything. A 3-mana 1/5 taunt, that's okay. The +2 attack during their turn is okay. But as we found here with the Rotten Apple Bomb, 2 more mana, 3 more overall power, gives you a little more meat on your turn. And I feel that the healing of life for a deck like this is very relevant, because sometimes you are just kind of stringing yourself along until you can stabilize. Any health gain you can get is nice. And I don't feel like in a deck like this you necessarily have to have a low curve. So overall, I felt that Rotten Apple Bomb was a better play than Tar Creeper. We haven't tested with this a whole bunch yet, but I am much happier with the idea of gaining 4 life for 2 more mana than what Tar Creeper had to offer altogether. Now, the next cut that we have here is Voidwalker. Originally I put it in there because I love this card, mostly because the World of Warcraft TCG Voidwalker is one of my favorite cards. Warlock was my favorite class. And instead of it, we put in a Vulgar Homunculus. Now, is Vulgar Homunculus a great card? Not really. 2 mana, that's okay. The 1 extra power is fine, the 1 extra toughness is fine. The dealing damage to you is not that great. But I do like the fact that it does have 2 power. Being able to kind of combat some of the more aggressive creatures is nice. Being able to actually kill things feels good. And so far in testing, it's been okay. I would say in terms of speed, maybe Voidwalker could be a bigger deterrent, but having that 2 power on the Homunculus, at least it's doing some actual damage back. Could the Homunculus get cut? Maybe. We haven't tested with it a whole lot yet, but it hasn't been the worst card in the deck, so we'll see where it goes. The next card we cut here was Voodoo Doll, and I found this card very hard to cut. This was one of the cards that I absolutely fell in love with, especially with the synergies with things like the Mortal Coil, where you can play it. So it's essentially a 4-mana kill spell and draws you a card. But the problem is there's games where it's just too cute. You don't have the Mortal Coil. You'll battle cry to choose a minion. They'll have some form of shapeshifter card or transformational card where your target falls off. And that really made the Voodoo Doll feel bad. And in exchange, we added in a Cynic Swamp Ooze. I will say with the Swamp Ooze, this is more of us playing scared, because over the last couple of days that we've been grinding, we've seen a lot of Rogue, and with Rogue, most of the builds have very scary weapons. Could this card get cut? It might. It could just be us playing scared, as I said. But I do think that sometimes there's certain equipments that you just have to get off board. And I think for 2 mana, this is probably the strongest choice. It's mana efficient. It is a 3/2, which is nice. It can kind of play a little bit of an aggressive game early. And overall, I feel like it's still worth testing out. Now, the last card we cut here was the Kobold Librarian. I don't mind it. A 1 mana 2/1 to draw a card to deal you 2. That's fair. You get a life tap essentially on turn 1, and then you get a life tap on turn 2. That is okay. That's all good and fine, but I feel like with this deck you have a lot of games where I had too much draw and not enough gas to go with it. So in exchange for Kobold Librarian, we put in a Deathlord. At first, when I read this card, because I had seen other lists playing it, a 3 mana 2/8 with Taunt. That seems good. Death Rattle. Your opponent puts a minion from their deck onto the battlefield. That seems terrible. Now in testing with it, the couple times I've got to use the Deathlord right, we hit a Barnes, which was great because it shuts off the battle cry. I hit someone else's Reno Jackson. That felt good. There's been so many things where I've hit with the Demon Lord off that putting something into play. It was great. I kind of think for a deck like this too, you also have ways to kill a lot of stuff. So even if something does come into play, you're probably well protected. So far I feel like the Deathlord has been fantastic. Now for some of the cards I would like to add to this deck, one of them being a Void Lord. I will say a 9 mana 3/9 with Taunt is kind of slow. But being able to get 3 extra Taunters off it is great. The synergies with Blood Reaver Gul'dan is amazing. And this could be a nice higher end card. As you can see, I currently don't have the dust for it. Work in progress. Something else here that we're potentially thinking of adding is the Despicable Dreadlord, a 5 mana 4/5 at the end of your turn. Deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. I feel like this deck has some really strong board wipes in it, and I feel like this card should probably be in there. It also goes well with your Void Collar. It works well with your Gul'dan. But I'm not really sure how far into the Demon Lord or the Blood Reaver Gul'dan train I want to ride. I like the demons. I don't necessarily love the demons. I do love their arts. I don't necessarily love all of them. So it's sort of up in the air for the meantime. And the last card I would like to add in, if we can find it, is Demon Wrath. I think this card is really good for a deck like this. It helps keep the early pressure off you. It keeps Paladins, Silver Hand recruits in check. It helps against Pirate Warrior. There's a couple other decks that it's pretty good in. Overall, your deck has a ton of really solid board wipes. I feel like this is just another one that should probably be in there. Oh, and then one of the other cards someone had recommended to me is Zombie Chow. It's a good deterrent for fast decks. A 1 mana 2/3 is nice. I'm not so sure I love it just because there's been a couple games where my mistress has kind of backfired a little bit on us. Sometimes giving them life really does hurt your game plan. So with that said, we've talked about our list. We've discussed some of the cards that we'd like to add. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. We're going to continually update this RenoLock list as time goes on. We're going to continually have more in-depth videos discussing why we change stuff. If you want to go over to our Twitch, the link is probably somewhere in the description. Go follow us there. We do stream Hearthstone once, maybe twice a week right now. We've sort of been in a rut with our games, and we haven't been in a happy place, but I'm sure we'll bounce back. I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, evening, and I hope you watch the next video in the series. Peace.